What? Bang!
Whoa! Wrestling podcast. Just when they think they got the answers, I change the question.
Rep screwed rep.
Yeah.
Woo!
Who are you to doubt El Dandy? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Can he do it? Unbelievable.
I'm too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am Macho King Savage.
Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty. I said WWE stands for... It's me, Austin. I will never retire.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline PLEs, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, want your name in the shoutouts like my good buddy John in Texas, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Don't forget our loyalty rewards. Any $15 a month contributor gets to co-host a show with me. Our $7.50 a month contributors, you get entered into a drawing for one winner a month to also co-host a show with myself. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you want us to touch on in a future episode, maybe it's news, maybe it's rumors, maybe it's feedback, give us a call at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160, and we will get to those questions or comments in a future episode. Tonight, recapping the news in the world of pro wrestling for the day, starting with NXT going on tonight. Got to be honest with you, loving the stuff with Jordynne Grace and Blake Monroe. It kicked off the show. It's exactly what we're looking for from that feud. Two main roster level talents still in NXT, and getting to see them work this program is just a thing of beauty. I think everybody is really itching to see the blow-off from this program. Now, the part that kind of hits me a little bit is Jordynne Grace is absolutely phenomenal, and she needs to be on the main roster. And until she gets done this feud, she can't be. At the same time, I really want her to beat Blake Monroe, but that's not usually how it goes down. Monroe, being the newer talent, will probably win the feud before Grace makes her main roster move, if that is indeed what is going to happen. At the same time, Monroe could also be headed to the main roster in a relatively quick order. So I don't know. This is a tough one to see, but I love that they kicked off the show, keeping that story moving forward and keeping people invested and interested in what they're doing. The rest of the show, there were a few things that really seemed to stand out to me. I love Chelsea Green coming out with her Canadian heritage to back up Ethan Page. I really loved, I'm going to be honest with you, the highlight of the night for me is the interaction between Obafemi and Trick Williams. Clearly, they've got the history, talking about Obafemi in the past has always defeated Trick Williams. Trick Williams leading two brands, wanting both championships. I love that they bring Javon Evans into the mix, and he's going to get an opportunity to mix it up with them as well. And then, of course, the crossover surprise. Once again, TNA superstar Moose comes out, and he is going to be the man that is going to be taking on Trick Williams. And he wants to make sure that he reminds him of that, did not get too comfortable, because he's the man coming for him at the next TNA pay-per-view, Emergence. And this was done so well. I buy into a fatal four-way for the NXT Championship, which would be a great way to take the championship from Obafemi, him not having to take a pinfall loss. I don't really want to see Trick Williams walk around with two belts, So then it takes you to, well, what if Moose were to win the NXT championship? He's bringing the NXT title to TNA, and the TNA title resides on an NXT superstar. Or they could throw a funky bone into everything, put both championships on the line, and have somebody like Javon Evans walk out with both. I'd be okay with that too. But whatever they do, Dark State appearing and attacking all four of them, and actually getting laid out and knocked out of the ring, thought it was perfect. Really good stuff. So kudos to NXT tonight. They really are firing on all cylinders, and I really love what the things that they're doing. Got to get into some, whenever there's an up, there's a down. Some of the sadder news of the day. Of course, today was the day that legendary WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan was laid to rest in a private ceremony. And attending the funeral was just a who's who of wrestling royalty between Triple H, Stephanie McMahon was there. Ric Flair put out a beautiful note on X where he described other people who were there, like Vince McMahon being in attendance, Dennis Rodman, Kid Rock, Bam Margera. There's just a litany of people at the service, a who's who of the wrestling world. Really, really interesting stuff to see so much love and support for Hulk Hogan after his passing. At the same time, what's really strange, Brooke Hogan calling into the Bubba the Love Sponge show, having a conversation. Then there's several things that came out of it. And one of the things was she basically cleared Bubba of any wrongdoing in the Gawker situation, because for years he was kind of taking the fall for being the one who leaked information about the Hulk Hogan sex tape and whatnot, and apparently she debunked a lot of that. She basically made it clear that this was not Bubba, this was somebody else setting up the situation, and that he has been wrongfully accused for all these years. I think the most shocking thing coming out of the interview with Bubba was that, I'll give you the quote. It says, "For me, the no autopsy and the leukemia out of nowhere hits me as BS. Brooke Hogan does not believe in the leukemia diagnosis." I can't imagine why that would be put into there. I mean, her justification is a little strange. She said she'd be surprised that a surgeon who would work on somebody with leukemia, see the high white blood count, all these things, all the surgeries had, how nobody would have picked up on this. Then again, based on HIPAA stuff, she may not have been privy to that, and it's been well documented that the relationship between Brooke and her father the last couple of years has been very strained. So maybe he wasn't telling her. Maybe this is only a 2-year situation. But definitely a sad situation, and it's really a shame to see all this coming out, post the passing of Hulk Hogan. But I guess it's something we have to talk about. And of course, that leads me to another thing we have to talk about. I was actually surprised it's taken this long to hear from Bret the Hitman Hart relating to the passing of Hulk Hogan. And he had some interesting things to say. He was doing an interview and comments about his passing and whatnot. And he was on the Masked Man show. And I'll read the quote to you because it's an interesting one. He says, "You can never deny what Hulk Hogan did. Like, his footprint in the wrestling business will always be huge, like maybe as big as it's ever going to get," Hart explained. "Roddy Piper was one of the few guys that reached down and pulled me up to his level. He helped pull me up. Roddy Piper made me and contributed back to the next generation, but there was a lot of wrestlers that didn't do that. Hulk Hogan never did that for anybody. He never pulled anyone else up. It's interesting," he goes on to say, "Jake Roberts never did anything for anybody else. He only did for Jake Roberts. I look at Jake Roberts and I look at Hulk Hogan as just two guys." And I find that interesting because, I won't say the Hulk Hogan pulled anybody up, but the Giant was a brand new wrestler, and Hogan got to work with him right away. And he became WCW World Champion right away. When Goldberg was at his pinnacle, Hogan is the one who put him over and put the WCW Championship on him. If you look at the litany of wrestlers, people, let's go all the way back, 84 on. People like Kamala, King Kong Bundy, heck, even people like Adrian Adonis. Those are people who were always big in their territory, but never certainly a world heavyweight champion. And I can remember being a fan at the Philadelphia Spectrum, watching matches between Hulk Hogan and Kamala, Hulk Hogan and adorable Adrian Adonis, Hulk Hogan, and a litany, King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd. These are people who never reached world champion status in any of the other territories they went to. I think the biggest credit I can give to King Kong Bundy is he's the man who got the pleasure of being the last opponent for Fritz von Erich during his first real retirement, where he lost the America's Championship to Fritz von Erich. But in most of the places that King Kong Bundy went, he was an attraction. He was never a world championship contender, and he headlined WrestleMania 2. If that's not Hogan reaching down and pulling somebody up, I don't know what is. Think about other wrestlers he worked with. In the NWA, Big Bubba Rogers was just a bodyguard. When he comes to WWE and works with Hogan right away, he's in the main event as the big boss man. The one-man gang, he was in UWF, won the UWF World Heavyweight Championship by forfeit, lost it shortly after to Steve Dr. Death Williams. So I don't know if he was ever actually a world champion level guy, but he got to work a world championship program with Hogan as the one-man gang, and then later on as Akeem. Hulk Hogan didn't have to bring Randy Savage up to the level he did, but he did. Everybody Hogan worked with was bringing somebody up. He's the guy who put the Ultimate Warrior over clean at WrestleMania 6. So did he reach down and help anybody? Absolutely. Is anybody who typically trashes the Warrior's in-ring skill going to trash the fact that Hulk Hogan took a guy who most people claim had no in-ring skill, gave him the best match probably of his career, short of maybe the Rick Rude series? You know, that's reaching down and pulling somebody up. I think sometimes Bret Hart being so frustrated over 30 years ago when Hogan refused to drop the WWE Championship back to him at SummerSlam 93, I think Bret Hart kind of hangs on to that sometimes and lets it cloud his judgment in terms of what's going on with Hulk Hogan the rest of his career. But, you know, it's hard. You know, you don't want to see these wrestlers holding grudges, but it's almost like that's what it is. It's almost like it's a grudge that he just can't let go of, just like the Goldberg one. And then, of course, the last thing I have to talk about tonight in terms of Hulk Hogan, TMZ is going to be releasing a documentary on the life of Hulk Hogan, and there are some premium names going to be involved. Interviews with Sylvester Stallone, Vince McMahon, Mick Foley, Bill Goldberg, Jimmy Hart, Alexa Bliss, Jacob Fatu, Charlotte Flair. It's a who's who of wrestling personalities and big stars, especially with people like Vince McMahon being involved. And that's supposed to air August 12th. 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. That should be an incredible opportunity to take a different look at Hulk Hogan's contributions. And I definitely will be looking forward to seeing that. I hope they do some really cool stuff with that opportunity. It's not going to be one of these Hollywood things. I'm still wishing they would have done the Hemsworth one, but, you know, you can't have everything. Let's move on to some more news today. Karrion Kross and Scarlett were not backstage at Raw ahead of their contract expiring this coming weekend. I was on X and I saw an interesting post from Karrion Kross. It was a phone voicemail message from Kevin Sullivan, former talent relations guy for AEW, basically talking to him about how he doesn't understand why WWE doesn't see more in Kross. He's got the look, he's got the mic skills, he's got the in-ring ability. He should be a big star. He's encouraging him not to feel down about his place in WWE, and the great things are coming to him. I too don't understand, other than something that is not Kross's fault, the fact that they have created, his finisher sucks. This back elbow thing is just god-awful terrible. It's Killer Kross. It's Karrion Kross. He should have some insanely powerful finishing hold, and I think that would be what they need to cap off the package. But that shouldn't be enough to hold him down, especially not with the groundswell of support coming from the wrestling internet community. So, again, if WWE lets him walk, I'll be thoroughly shocked. I'm hoping this is a work, not a shoot. I'm hoping that either they already have signed extensions or they will soon. But as of right now, if you follow along with all this stuff, you got to have that sense that they may be leaving the company. And where do they go after there? Do they go to Japan? Do they go back to TNA? Do they reach out to Tony Khan and AEW? We'll have to wait and see. One of the biggest stories of the weekend, not just the Brock Lesnar return, but now the conversation about why now is the time to bring him back to WWE television. Fightful Select reporting that the decision came from WWE's legal department in recent weeks. They confirmed previous reports that, WWE Legal had signed off on his return. The estimate is around 4 weeks ago. Booker T was on his podcast, and his opinion on the situation is either Brock has been cleared of any wrongdoing, or the Janelle Grant lawsuit could be coming to a conclusion, whether that's arbitration or whatever it is, a settlement. We'll have to wait and see. There was a press release from Grant's team that made it clear that the lawsuit's not going away. But what we really need to think about here is, no matter how you feel about the Janelle Grant lawsuit, I'm not here to take sides. Brock Lesnar's involvement in the entire conversation can be boiled down to one basic thing. He was contemplating cheating on his wife. Am I justifying it? Absolutely not. I think it's horrible for anybody that does that. But that's what he was about to do. And Vince McMahon was a very good personal friend of Brock Lesnar's, and Vince basically was trying to get him a hookup. That's the way they're going to look at it in court. It may not be how Janelle Grant's legal team wants to look at it, and of course they're going to pursue it as a much more serious thing because they, traveled across state lines, and that makes it trafficking and all that. But they are going to probably be implying that she was a willing participant, that Brock Lesnar is this world-famous, world-renowned UFC, WWE guy or whatnot, and it was just a hookup. Vince McMahon has maintained the whole time that this was a relationship that she's upset about that went sour and whatnot. So I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. What I know is, from a legal standpoint, I don't know what you could possibly get Brock on to begin with. He's not even named in the lawsuit. So I'm not surprised. He's a figure in the lawsuit that is referenced, but there's no charges being brought against Brock Lesnar. So him coming back doesn't surprise me at all, and I think it's an injection of life into WWE when I guess maybe they felt like they needed to, especially with all the stuff they got going on right now. Heck, another report came out on Dave Meltzer's show where he was talking about there was like another championship match that was planned for SummerSlam. That the idea of putting the World Championship on Seth Rollins on night one was it wasn't a last-minute thing. It was planned. But there were originally conversations about having him defend the championship night 2 against LA Knight, like he did on Monday Night Raw. But for whatever reason, that seems to have gotten changed. Wrestling Observer Radio saying that they changed that over and decided to put it on Raw instead with no advertising. But, according to Dave Meltzer, the match was always scheduled to happen with Seth defending against LA Knight this week. So it was planned several weeks beforehand. It's not something new. Interesting. I don't know how they would have sold that at SummerSlam unless they would have had him do the cash-in and then have LA Knight come out and do something either after the cash-in or at the start of night 2. I guess that's possible, but that's what we're hearing from the Meltzer camp. Now, other news coming out of SummerSlam, Gunther is out indefinitely. Now, they claim that it's due to injuries suffered at SummerSlam's main event. That is not the report that I've seen. The report that I've seen is that he has an orbital blowout fracture. That and those things. The rumor is that happened before the match. That the spot where CM Punk swipes out his legs and he falls on the table is done on purpose so he can go down, come up with the blood, and it would justify him being out of the ring for an extended period of time and whatnot. And hopefully, Gunther will be back in short order. According to Dave Meltzer, once again, Wrestling Observer Radio, Gunther is going to require surgery on his nose. His word is, he says the spot in the match where Gunther hit the announce table was included to make that look like the injury occurred then. It is a key to note that Michael Cole did not mention surgery on his nose during the Raw broadcast, but that's the word we're getting from Dave Meltzer, so we'll have to wait, and I'm not sure how long he'll be out. Hopefully he'll get back quickly so he can still hopefully have that opportunity to wrestle John Cena before the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he's a fast healer. One other tidbit before we get to Raw, update on TNA, and they have a potential media rights deal coming down the pike. I almost feel like a broken record tonight, but referencing once again, back to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they have a quote in here. It says, regarding the new TV deal, both A&E and CW have been rumored, and in both these cases, obviously, WWE would have been involved. The report stated, adding that WWE could potentially get either A&E or CW to move TNA to Wednesday nights, but the report also added that the stations might decide to instead air TNA shows on Thursdays or Sundays, since those would be the only nights without competition from WWE or AEW television shows. And the report also suggests that TNA could be a good lead-in for WWE LFG, which already airs on Sunday nights on A&E. And I think it's a great idea. The whole point of this partnership was to get them enhanced viewership, and that has paid off. Record-setting pay-per-views and things like that. So a new media rights deal, the support of WWE, These two companies are getting closer and closer. It's a beautiful thing, I think, for the wrestling community. Though I gotta say, now that WWE has officially taken full control of AAA, it would not surprise me if somewhere down the line they didn't acquire TNA. If for some reason Anthem decides to get out of the business, we'll have to wait and see. That being said, let's get into our response to WWE Monday Night Raw, or Netflix Raw. We started the show with Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker all out in the ring. They're talking trash about just about everybody. LA Knight's music hits. He comes out. Yeah, he's the guy who beat Seth Rollins. Shouldn't he get a title shot? Absolutely. And I love that Adam Pearce was not the typical cowardly Adam Pearce. He seemed to really know what he was doing. And he comes out and makes the match official for that night, which I think was perfect. We have our first match is Sheamus versus Rusev, match 3 in their series. This one ends with a double countout, a horrible finish to it. But I guess what I think there was the whole purpose to this was for the backstage segment later on, where the two of them are still fighting, and somehow they include Sami Zayn in that, accidentally seeing Rusev hit Sami Zayn, which will lead to a match next week between the two of them. We have Penta and Grayson Waller after a backstage segment. This was all right. I'm chomping at the bit for Penta and Phoenix to be reunited. Maybe now that TLC match is over, we can move towards that. But Penta, he wins with a Mexican Destroyer, defeats Grayson Waller. After the match, he basically takes out the New Day, which I'm fine with. Xavier Woods wearing this crazy hat with all these frills. He ends up throwing that at him out of the ring. He wore it for a little bit and did his little dance and strut, which I thought was awesome. Later on, we hear from Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Awkward exchanges with them taking each other's belts and playing up to the friend thing. And that they're stuck together as long as they're still women's tag team champions. Of course, this brings out Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez for a rematch for the women's tag team championship. Solid match, relatively short match, good match. Charlotte and Alexa pick up the win after a Sister Abigail on Roxanne. And then it follows up with Dominic Mysterio versus Dragon Lee. Actually, a really, really good match. Dragon Lee looked great in this. Let's get to the part that I hated. El Grande Americano, the one that is more than likely Ludwig Kaiser, comes out. Then here comes El Grande Americano Part 2, which is, Pete Dunne. And then we get El Grande Americano Part 3, which I still don't think is Chad Gable. And I'll be honest with you, normally I would Google this stuff, find out who the third one is. I just don't care at this point. It's almost like Doink the Clown. I just don't care. Can we just get on with this storyline? Are we going to do this until we have 8 of them and have an El Grande Americano tournament? Whatever. Didn't do anything for me, but I was okay with Dominic picking up the win. After the match, AJ Styles runs down, grabs the boot from Dominic, goes to hit him with it, but doesn't happen. Which obviously their feud is not over. That's the part of the show where we see the Sami Zayn backstage part with Sheamus and Rusev and him getting involved. Then we get the Becky Lynch promo, which, if you watch this show, this is probably the most important thing of the night. Becky Lynch talking trash, Nikki Bella, her music hits, she makes her way to the ring. And there's the general stuff back and forth, but nothing gets as much heat as when Becky Lynch talks about her and her husband, her hot husband, being the greatest wrestling couple of all time. And then she goes, "It would have been you and your and she pauses, and she's making reference to John Cena. She goes, "Oh, that's right. You can't see him anymore." Making fun of the way her and John Cena's relationship fell apart, which I thought, the reaction from the crowds was fantastic. But then she hits Nikki Bella. She goes down and stays down, and then she just leaves the ring. And I thought, you really punked out Nikki Bella. You know what I mean? Nikki Bella had nothing. It was all generic promo stuff. And when you get hit with a zinger like that, you got to come back with some kind of fire, man. Come back with something about Charlotte. You can't even keep your best friend, or I don't know, whatever. But you got to have a zinger of some kind. You can't just walk away from that, and that's exactly what happened. And Nikki Bella kind of looked weak. I guess this will lead to a program and a match between the two for the title. I don't really care if she wins, retains, or if she loses it, but I thought this could have been done better. I don't like the invoking of John Cena just because I think, that's like tearing a Band-Aid off an old wound. It's not needed. And if you're going to do it, here's the crazy part, right? And I listened to Busted Open with Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray talking about this. As soon as she hit with the line, I'm being honest. They didn't believe the one fan who said it, but if you're all listening to my show, you're a big enough fan that you probably did the same thing I do. How cool would it be to see Seth and Becky against Cena and Nikki? Now, Cena is now married. Nikki is recently divorced. You would need a whole lot of goodwill from John Cena and his wife to pull off an angle where he defends the honor of Nikki Bella, despite the fact that they're no longer together. I mean, he could play it as, he could come out and be like, hey, even though our relationship didn't work out, we are still friendly with one another. We're respectful of one another, whatever. And I could buy that. And I thought it too. And I think Dave LaGreca thought one of the callers was full of it when they referenced that. But I thought the same thing. It makes total sense. I just can't imagine what John Cena's wife would feel like if that's the angle you go with. But it was worth the view. I would love to see Cena do that, but of course with the Brock Lesnar stuff going on, I don't think that's going to happen. And then the final part of the evening, we get Seth Rollins defending the World Heavyweight Championship against LA Knight. Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker were barred from ringside. Thank you, Adam Pearce, for getting involved again to make that happen. But we all know what's going to happen here. At one point, we're getting ready to see a curb stomp into the concrete floor. CM Punk hits the ring, causes the disqualification. What's weird to me is LA Knight gets mad at Punk for costing him the championship. I get that. But you were about to have your face stomped into the floor. And if history tells us anything, that's what happened to Roman Reigns. And he was out for like 3 months leading into WrestleMania. So if you're LA Knight, do you want your face smushed in the floor? Or are you going to come out with something like, oh, I had him right where I want him. I was faking it or whatever. I was faking it like he faked his injury or whatever. Maybe. But I do think people were interested in the LA Knight CM Punk dynamic. I think that could be very, very cool. And certainly a stopgap until we get to Punk Roman, which I think has to happen at some point. Punk throwing some shade at Roman on X today. Not sure how that's going to play out. We do see Punk hit the ring. LA Knight pulls him off. They're all fighting like crazy. And then, of course, the Brawns come to the ring. They lay out both of them. And then as they're getting ready to go to the back, they start cueing the music. The end credits are getting ready to roll and everything. And they cue the OTC's entrance music. Roman Reigns makes an unannounced appearance on Raw, comes to the ring, starts cleaning house, takes out both Brawns. Then they tease he and Seth. Seth backs out of the ring, and then it goes down between he and the Brawns. And at one point, as he's getting the better of the two of them, Seth comes in, hits the curb stomp, and that's how we're going to end the show with 3 tsunamis, which, again, I heard Bully Ray today talking about why did they only do 3? He did 6 of them to Seth last year. Why wouldn't you do 6 of them to Roman? At least 6 of them to Roman to try to take out the biggest threat to Seth Rollins' faction. I agree with Bully Ray. The guy's got the most incredible insight into the wrestling business that I think I've ever seen. But this is obviously going to set up a 6-man tag team match, something I don't really care for. But all in all, I thought Raw was pretty solid coming out of a great SummerSlam 2-night event. Not disappointed with any of it, except for maybe some of the interview lines and whatnot. I don't really care for the El Grande Americano nonsense, but most of the rest of the show is pretty solid, if I'm being honest. I feel like AJ Styles promo, I'm a huge AJ mark. I feel like some of his stuff comes across as a little bit hokey and a little bit too choreographed. But otherwise, it was good stuff. I love Sami Zayn getting involved with somebody else. I would have loved to have seen Karrion Kross, who was not there. I would have been interested to see a lot of talents that were not there. I was kind of surprised. But all in all, pretty good show. No major complaints, that's for sure. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, goes out to Suno for generating our music and sound effects in our show. Today's show sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, maybe you're considering college or university life, maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life educational planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking some time with us tonight. Till next time, take care, everyone. Have a great one.
Wrestling Podcast.